640 Rockefeller Plaza. Here is Ed Schultz.
Welcome back to A Stronger America, the Black Agenda. I'm Ed Schultz along with Reverend Al Sharpton. We begin this hour with a question that sounds simple, almost elementary. Is learning to read and write a civil right? Joining us now is Randi Weingarten. She is the president of the American Federation of Teachers. Russlynn H is the Assistant Secretary for Civil Rights at the Department of Education. And Derrell Bradford is the Executive Director of Excellent Education for Everyone. Thank all of you for joining us here on this program today. But first, let's get the latest information on where we stand on education from NBC News correspondent Mara Schiavocampo. Mara?
Well, Ed, when it comes to education, the headline is that racial inequalities start young and persist through life. Widely considered a national crisis, nothing illustrates the problem more strongly than the stark statistics. When it comes to standardized tests, the average black child scores below 75% of white children. In 2009, only 12% of black male students performed at or above proficiency levels in national fourth grade reading tests, compared to 38% of white males nationwide. One report found only 47% of black males graduated from high school in 2008. Now, these problems with education ultimately lead to problems in employment. It's projected that 70% of black adults won't have the required education for a huge chunk of new jobs that will be created in the next few years. And then there's the question of historically black colleges and universities. Does their tradition of excellence and cultural importance reverse these awful trends? Well, unfortunately, in many ways, the answer seems to be no. One recent study found that of the 20 universities with the highest black graduation rates, only one, Howard University, was an HBCU. Ed, now back to you.
Thank you, Mara. There is no question that the National Action Network has been on the forefront of fighting for black Americans when it comes to a great education. Not a good education, the best education. And it is about resources. Reverend Sharpton, it's about the family, too. It starts at home. And at the National Action Network this week, at your banquet the other night, I thought Dr. Bill Cosby hit the nail on the head. We have a lot of things to do to make things right when it comes to public education in this country. And a good, stable home life is a big foundation. But the great thing about public education is when the door is open, everybody's welcome. The gifted, the talented, those who have got special needs. With that being cut and a challenged home life, and you look at the statistics that Mara was just throwing out there, it looks like black people in America are being left behind.
And that is the point, which is why we need to all be standing up dealing with that. I went, as I said in the last segment, I went on tour with Randi Weingarten and Lee Saunders, talking about what these cuts are going to mean. Rallying and marching and all. It's easy for people to sit back and take shots at this. We've got to build a movement, because we're talking about in some cities and states. Look at Detroit. Only 26% of black males are getting a high school diploma. You just can't sit back and just say President Obama ought to be solving all that and act like no one has responsibility to get out there and press these issues front and center. And I'm tired of all the excuses. We need to get up and galvanize this country.
Randi, what did No Child Left Behind do to education in this country? Because the federal money didn't show up to the school districts.
Well, you know, look, you need both quality and equity. And so what No Child Left Behind did was it was really important about shining the spotlight on failure and where we weren't succeeding, but it didn't create the incentives and the path to success. So there was a fixation on the almighty test score as opposed to what are the things that actually work to turn things around, which is both teachers, curriculum, broad and rich, as well as the wraparound services we need to schools so that we can level the playing field, particularly for poor kids.
Well, if you have No Child Left Behind, which has been the focal point of education in this country since it was passed and trying to make it work, I know for a fact that educators have pushed back, saying that this isn't the right way to go. President Obama has come in and said we've got to adjust it, we've got to make some changes, we've got to reinvest. But Russlynn, what is a reinvestment do at this point, and what kind of reinvestment has to be made?
The kind of reinvestment that will put money where we know it will work.
And
for
where is
kids.
that?
The achievement gap is not caused because of someone's skin color. It's caused by the opportunity gaps.
Correct.
It's caused because across this country, Black children are in schools with far fewer of the most qualified teachers. We spend far fewer dollars on their education. We give them access to the courses they need to succeed at far less rates. Close those opportunity gaps, target our resources for what we know works to the kids that need it the most.
Is it a civil
see
right?
difference.
Is it a civil right to make sure that every child can read and write in this country?
It is not a right embedded in our Constitution, as the courts have said to us. That said, it is absolutely, as the President and Secretary Arne Duncan have talked about, the most important civil rights issue of our generation. Now, the problem is, as the Reverend has intimated all day, it doesn't look like one. The movements of the past don't look like this movement. We're complacent. Families think education might not be great in America, but for my kid, it is.
Derrell, there is an attack on public education based on what we have seen unfold in Wisconsin. They make the case that teachers make too much money. They make the case that teachers have too good of retirement. Where do we stand if we attack the profession of teaching? And that's how I view this. The editorial comment. I believe that they are attacking public education, and they're not only doing it through not getting the money to the school districts through No Child Left Behind, which way they were supposed to do, but now attacking the employee in the classroom. How do we reverse that?
Okay, so I'm in New Jersey, not in Wisconsin. And in New Jersey, we're spending more on average before the economic crisis and still during it on Black kids, white kids, whatever, than any other place in the country except New York. We're consistently number 1 and number 2 in spending. We're consistently top 5 in teacher salaries. And more importantly, we're spending more on African American and Hispanic kids who go to schools in cities than
in Trenton?
In Trenton, in Newark, where it's $23,000 a kid, in Asbury Park, where it's $30,000 a kid. We do not have a resource problem, not in terms of money. What we have are resource problems in terms of power, because we deliver our parents to schools that we know have not worked because their zip codes define where they get to go to school. And we have a resource problem in terms of adults, who we put in the classroom. We know that if you're Black or you're poor, you are more likely to get a teacher that's out of subject matter. You're more likely to get a teacher that's inexperienced. You're more likely to be hit by last in, first out policies if we have to downsize based on budgets. And you're less likely to have a choice about where you send your kid to
Randy, how
school.
do we fix that? Just what he's talking about.
First off, the way we fix it, and let me talk about the places where we have fixed it, like New Haven, like Baltimore, like ABC School District, all across the country. The way you fix it is you create schools and school districts that substitute trust for combativeness, that essentially look at teachers as a huge resource. I love when we talk about how teachers are the most important in-school factor, and yet we don't actually listen to what they need to do their jobs. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't change tenure. Tenure should neither be a shield to shield incompetence, nor should it be an excuse for managers not to manage. But let's actually start respecting teachers like they do in the countries that outcompete us. Let's have a broad and rich curriculum so we can differentiate instruction, like Russlynn was saying, and let's make sure we have those services around schools like Jeff Canada does in Harlem.
Derrell,
we have to do those kind of things because
Derrell,
we
your
can't
governor
do it alone.
your governor has painted the picture that teachers are overpaid, that they're the problem, that they make too much money, that their health care is a problem, that their pension is a problem.
And jumped in teachers' face and made national news demonizing teachers. I'm one for teachers' accountability, but I mean to act as though that if the teachers would just get out of the way, that we would have a problem. And then I'm surprised, Derrell, when you say we don't have a resource problem, then why is the governor of New Jersey laying off all these teachers?
So the question is, the question is, what Governor Christie is doing in New Jersey, it's going to make it better in Newark and better in Trenton?
Let me tell you what Chris Christie did. Chris Christie made talking about the plight of children who are not Republicans and who are largely African American and Hispanic a priority in his administration.
Some call it a target.
And that was something that Governor Corzine and Governor McGreevey and every single person who preceded him failed to do and was unwilling to do. I'm all about combative.
He made them a priority. How?
Because before the governor made the fact that on a cohort basis, 22% of students in Newark are graduating via the standard route. No person wanted to talk about that in the public. No person wanted to make this a priority in the minds of editorial boards and families and legislators.
He didn't focus on that. He focused on the villain. He focused on the teachers.
Not on the solution.
Yeah.
Not on.
Russlynn,
I'm sorry.
thoughts?
He's just bullying teachers so much every single place he goes.
This conversation illustrates the most important point, though.
Right.
This finger pointing has to stop. Right?
Exactly.
But there are numbers that back up the things that are being said, and so it's not an opinion finger pointing. It's you have a certain amount of graduates, you have a certain amount of failures.
Absolutely. And these data are showing us why we have to have this sense of urgency in America.
Yes.
Studies have shown that had we closed the achievement gap the way we said we would a decade ago,
we would have
a $310 to $525 billion higher GDP.
So
the achievement gap is the equivalent of an indefinite recession.
Absolutely.
But this kind of finger pointing across party lines, pointing at governors, pointing at teachers, pillaring groups of folks is not going to get us where we need.
But the fact is, you have black students in the state of New Jersey who are failing. And no one has been able to come up with a solution as to turn that around.
We are seeing the makings of that right now. First part is vigorous enforcement of the nation's civil rights laws to alleviate this discrimination. Where it happens, we will suss it out and make sure it goes away, working with adults in the system to do what's right by kids. Second part is ensuring that, as we talked about, we put those resources where they need to go. What works, we know. Now, there's no one silver bullet answer, but working together, pointing the money and the attention in the right direction, focusing on those bottom performing schools. 2,000 high schools in the country produce 75% of the nation's black and brown dropouts.
Okay, but there's
Turn those
more.
around, we'll start seeing progress at scale.
But there's more, which is that in between all the Scream Fest, there have been people around America that are looking at what works and trying to replicate it. The worst problem in public education in America is when we see what works, we do not sustain it and we do not replicate it. And ultimately, what we've seen is that when we create systems of education like they do in the countries that outcompete us, where they focus on teacher preparation, teacher respect, real curriculum, real ways of differentiating instruction, and these wraparound services, so we don't think that poverty
Derrell?
can't help or can't be trumped. That works.
You have the last word in this segment.
Okay, so listen, here's what I'm saying. And I'm all about this being combative because I'm mad that more people aren't mad about the fact that these children will never take their place in the main as equals in this society. I can't stand for that. I don't think any human being should wait one more moment. And I think the spirit of equality that we're really supposed to be here to talk about starts with, as you said, equal access. Just because you can walk into a school doesn't mean you're walking into a place that's going to give you the kind of education you need to be a productive citizen and a competitor in the labor
So
market.
how do we make it better?
Okay, so the first thing, you got to expand school choice. There are great schools all across, and I'm hugely supportive of the president on the majority of his agenda. Charter schools, non-public schools, magnet schools, district schools. We have great things all over the place.
Are you in favor? And I think we have to get to this. Are you in favor of tax dollars going to private schools?
Yes, I am. Absolutely.
Why? But not everybody can afford to go to a private school.
Exactly.
So you're going to have a poor child's parents paying for money to a private school, but that kid might not have the resources to go to that school. Where's the fairness in that?
I've been working on a policy for a very long time that is meant specifically to address the needs of low-income kids in the 200 lowest performing schools in the state with state financing. Now, look, I got to tell you, this stuff is not popular, and I'd hate talking about it. But until we equalize the opportunity in the school that your zip code gives you a right to go to, we got to have other stuff on the table.
Great discussion. We're going to move along. And coming up, the 5 digits that could determine your future, your zip code. We'll talk about that. New studies show a direct correlation between high incarceration rates and low performing schools. Why are we as a country spending more on incarceration than education? A Stronger America, the Black Agenda, takes that subject on next. Stay with us.
I'm gonna teach you how to sing it out.